The time to beat your promotion that's crushing it is immediately. Good, better, best. Never let it rest until the good is better and the better best. It's kind of corny, but that's direct marketing in a nutshell. You have to always be testing.
Brian Kurtz, lenda do marketing direto com mais de 40 anos de experiência.
Ele levou a icônica Boardroom Inc. de 5 para mais de 150 milhões de dólares em receita.
Hoje, sua missão é ensinar os princípios eternos do marketing direto para a próxima geração.
There was a 40-40-20 rule in direct response marketing, and the 40-40-20 rule said the success of any campaign depends 40% on the list, 40% depends on the offer, and 20% depends on the creative and copy. The creative and copy is the least important element of your marketing campaign until it's not.
What do you think there is missing today that people in the past used to do?
That I've been in the business for over 40 years, and I've been involved in a lot of direct response marketing campaigns, online and offline, that I've worked with every great copywriter who's alive today, basically, and a lot of them are dead now. Yeah. But I've worked with every single one of them. And I looked for the characteristics that were part of all of them. And there were 7 characteristics.
I think the new direct response marketers, they really need to learn that. Fala pessoal, sejam bem-vindos a mais um episódio do podcast Segredos da Escala, que é o podcast do VTurb. Caso tu não conheça o podcast Segredos da Escala, a gente traz pessoas aqui que já escalaram suas ofertas, já escalaram seus negócios, para que tu que tá em casa assistindo aqui o podcast consiga pegar 1, 2, às vezes 3 dicas, caso, na hipótese do podcast ser bom, aplicar no teu negócio e escalar ele também. Esse podcast aqui, ele foi criado pelo VTurb, que é uma empresa que eu fundei, e se tu não conhece o VTurb, nós somos uma hospedagem de vídeos 100% focada em vídeos de vendas. Então, se tu tem um vídeo de vendas, tu precisa hospedar ele no VTurb, o teu vídeo vai vender muito mais do que se tivesse hospedado em qualquer outro lugar, não só do Brasil, tá? Mas do mundo. E é por isso que hoje as maiores empresas do mundo de marketing direto usam o VTurb e confiam na nossa tecnologia, que é uma tecnologia brasileira, para aumentar a conversão dos seus vídeos de vendas. Então, se tu ainda não é cliente do VTurb e gostaria de testar, tem esse QR Code aí na tela que tu vai ter 14 dias de graça para testar o VTurb, sem falar também em 15% de desconto durante 2 meses, assim que tu se tornar cliente. Ou então é só clicar no primeiro link aí da descrição aqui desse podcast, que também vai estar lá essa promoção, beleza? Mas agora, sem mais delongas, bora pro nosso episódio. So, Brian Kurtz, nice to have you here, man, on the VTurb podcast. I've been a fan of you for a long time now.
Yeah, and you're so young, so, you must have been a fan of mine since you were like 10 years old. I'm kidding. But yeah, no, I was so pleased when you contacted me because, as we said in the warm up, I never turned down a podcast, which is kind of, some people say I'm stupid to do that because there are a lot of podcasts that, you never know who the guy is or who the woman is. But yeah. I'm just obsessed with direct marketing. And so anybody who wants to talk to me about it, even if it doesn't matter how many downloads you have, it doesn't matter what your audience is, as long as they're people that are interested in direct response marketing, I'll keep talking until you shut me up.
That's amazing.
So, yeah. And especially because you're from Brazil. Brazil is such a growing market. It's I said in our warm up that I said that I just got made a deal to publish Breakthrough Advertising by Gene Schwartz, one of the greatest books ever written on copywriting, marketing, and human behavior. And it's going to be in Portuguese in the next year because I made amazing. A deal to get it translated. Because I know Brazil is one of those markets, and it's a place where I want to speak. It's a place where, through I guess it's Icaro, who is behind the publishing company. Yeah, he said, maybe we'll do a video with me on breakthrough advertising, and so I'm very into the international market for a lot of reasons, and I didn't just. So I was really pleased when you contacted me, and I'm really happy to be here.
Well, thank you for being here, and you probably don't know that, but I was the one who sent your contact to Icaro. Because Icaro, he was just learning direct response, and then he said, okay, who are the guys that I should learn about? Who are the biggest books that I should read? Then I made in a list of all the books that I read, like from Claude Hopkins to Dan Kennedy, all these guys.
And then there was, of course, Gene Schwartz there, and also your book, Over Deliver. And then I said to Ricardo, hey, if you want to publish this book here, Breakthrough Advertising, this is to me the best book. You should talk to this guy. And then I sent him your email because I also have one of your copies. A friend of mine bought from you, and then he gave me my own original copy of Breakthrough Advertising. I was like, oh my God.
That's a real friend.
Yeah, that's amazing. He's one of the best copywriters
so
right now.
You should call Icaro and get a piece of the royalty then.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
But thank you for that. I appreciate that.
No, thank you for being here. So, Brian, first thing that I would like to ask you is that you've been, I mean, first of all, for the few people that don't know you here in the VTurb audience, could you please tell us a little bit about yourself? What do you do right now and what you have done in the past so people can get to know you a little bit better?
Well, I've been in direct marketing for well over 40 years. And hopefully it's not 1 year's experience for 40 years, and it's 40 years of cumulative experience. People say I have 40 years experience, and they go, well, if you do the same thing every year for 40 years, it's okay, but it's not accumulated knowledge. And then that's how you get to wisdom, if you have accumulated knowledge. So I hope that it's a 40 plus year career of accumulated wisdom. And I pride myself on that. I always want to build on knowledge, and then innovate on things that I learn from people. So, I mean, just the brief, I can do 40 years in 3 minutes, but
please.
because you don't want to hear the whole 40-year monstrosity. But I basically spent the first 34 years helping build a company in the United States called Boardroom Inc. And Boardroom was a newsletter publisher and a book publisher of basically for consumers, health information, financial information, information about, personal health and psychology and all that kind of stuff. And we had the largest subscription newsletter. When I say newsletter, it wasn't a magazine, so there was no advertising in it. So we had the largest general consumer newsletter in the world. It had over 1 million paid active subscribers
to
a print newsletter. Now it's called Bottom Line Personal. And so we built that up. I didn't do it by myself, but the founder of the company, Marty Edelston, entrusted me with all the marketing. And so I became a partner in the business. We launched that. When I got to the company was maybe, I don't know, 5-6 million in 1981. And by the time we got to the mid to like 2004, 2005, we were at 157 million. And a lot of it was the idea of multi-channel marketing, because I think we said, before you turn the recording on, you said something to the effect of, Brian, I see you as somebody who always tests and is never in one medium. And if that's on my tombstone, I'm okay with that. Never met a test he didn't like, and never met a medium he didn't like. That doesn't mean you can test everything all the time, and because then you'll try to be everywhere and you'll get nowhere because you'll be too spread out. But you can't be in one. Dan Kennedy says the most dangerous number in business is one, and one medium is a death knell for you and your company. So I was always just committed to multi-channel marketing. So, I tested everything. But I got in to testing, and I got out quickly if it's something that didn't work. And so, in the 80s and 90s, advertising opportunities were finite. It was like, you had direct mail, you had TV, radio, space advertising. There weren't that many, there was no internet, there was no email, there was no Facebook, there was no, YouTube. So we had fewer choices. And even then we would not leave ourselves in one medium. Today, with advertising opportunities being infinite, I think that anybody who, is not diversified, and we can talk about that later, how to diversify, which I think is important, because you have to do it intelligently and responsibly. You can't, as I said, you can't be everywhere, but you can make it seem like you're everywhere if you choose wisely. And I think that, that's something that I've prided myself on. So Boardroom, 34 years, and then got to 157 million. We made a good transition to online. We developed our newsletters in email, and but it was time to leave when I left. Marty Edelston, the founder, he had made me a partner in the business. He died in 2013.
Yeah.
In 2014, I did a tribute event to him, which is kind of known to some people who were around then.
The
It's
Titans.
all, yeah, Titans of Direct
Yeah.
Response, and it was a who's who of legends who were still alive at the time. Dan Kennedy, Joe Sugarman, Jay Abraham, Ken McCarthy, Gary Bencivenga,
Yeah.
copywriter, then copywriters who worked for Boardroom, Carousel Impropolis, David Deutsch, Greg Ranker was there, who was the guy who runs the largest infomercial business. We had the king of direct response radio there, Perry Marshall. So it was just and after that, I said, you know what? I got more to do than just Boardroom. I mean, the company was being run by Marty's kids at the time, at
Yeah.
that after Marty passed, and I said, I'm not doing my best work here anymore. So I decided to leave, and I launched Titans Marketing, which I launched as sort of a direct marketing educational business, coaching business. I don't like to say consulting because in the United States, when someone says they're a consultant, they're usually unemployed. So I don't, and it's just something that I think about in my mind. Maybe it's my association.
Yeah.
So so I developed, and the first thing I did, interestingly, if you talk about ascension models and descension models in direct marketing, an ascension model means, you go from a low ticket product, a $20 product, a $50 product, a $100 product, and you work your way up to 1,000, to 2,000, to 10,000. I did a descension model, and that's the advantage of having 34 years experience. That's cumulative because I had developed a following. I was no guru, believe me, but I developed a following of
Yeah.
people that wanted to be with me, which was nice. And so I launched a mastermind, a $20,000 mastermind, $20,000 a year, 25,000 if you come with a partner. And I immediately got 23 people, 23 companies to join. And I launched that within like 6 months after I left Boardroom. So immediately I had a business. I mean, that's a $500,000 business right off the top, right?
Yeah.
Just $25,000 at 23 people is over $500,000 in revenue. So
Yeah.
from there, I said I only wanted 30 companies max. And I got to 30 pretty quickly. So now it's like a $700,000 business. And then I put on top of that the fact that I had the rights to breakthrough advertising. When I was at Boardroom, Gene Schwartz was one of our copywriters. It's one of the greatest of all time, and he had passed. Had passed away many years when I started Titans in 2015. But I went to Gene's wife. I had published breakthrough advertising in small quantities while I was still at Boardroom, but I took the rights with me. I negotiated a new contract with his wife, Barbara. And since 2015, I've sold 15,000 copies
Oh.
of breakthrough advertising at $125 a book because it was very rare. So you'd see it on eBay and Amazon for like $500 and
Yeah.
$1,000. So $125 was a bargain. Um, and then I also develop a boot camp because breakthrough advertising is a very dense book. So we do these 3-week boot camps with, multiple calls to go through the book with exercises and hot seats. And so people can adapt. Actually, you pay $125 for a book. You want to be able to make it work for you, right?
Of course.
So we have the boot camp. And then my marketing partner, Chris Mason, had the idea to do a companion volume, which we did. It's a 500-page companion volume, Breakthrough Advertising Mastery. And the book is fantastic. It's just, got the exercises from the boot camp. It's got every ad that Gene mentions in Breakthrough Advertising, and we
That's
got them
amazing.
published in 4 color. And the guy who got me the ads is from Brazil.
Okay, I'm sold. Where can I buy this?
I'll send you the digital version tomorrow.
That's
But
amazing. That's really
yeah,
cool.
it's an amazing book. So I've got the breakthrough advertising franchise. I've got now I don't have Titans Mastermind anymore. I have Titans Accelerator, which is a mastermind that's virtual with 250 members. So it's basically, I have a very simple business, but I'm trying to reach as many people as possible
Yeah.
with, what I've learned. Basically, it's Jay Abraham wrote the forward to Over Deliver, my book, and he's one of my mentors. And he always said, Brian, if you did it, you have a responsibility to teach it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of that's where I am in my life. I'm going to be 67 years old in May. And so I'm in like a teaching, mentoring phase. And the amazing thing is, when I say I'm a teacher and a mentor, I'm still a student,
Yeah.
because I'm somebody, like some online marketer comes to me and says, you're like my mentor from afar, Brian. And then I learn what this guy's up to or this woman's up to. And after we're done, after we get together and they speak at my mastermind and they're like proficient in the new media, I say, you know what? You're my mentor. You're my teacher, because that's the way it goes. When the student becomes the teacher, that's when life is just grand. It's like, and so I toggle between teacher and student every day, and
Yeah.
it's a wonderful place to be. So
Yeah.
that's my 40 plus years in a nutshell.
Well, just to answer you, I would like to say thank you just because you're doing that. Because at the end of the day, someone needs to pass the experience to the other generation. So you could just, play golf and do your thing, but you're actually
Yeah.
here working. So thank you for doing that. I appreciate it.
But
And
my work
also,
is my play, so it's not really working.
uh,
But you're right. Technically it's my job and my company.
yeah,
But when you get to this stage in life, and I say this to everybody listening, including you. I mean, you're what? You're 30 years old,
I'm
and
telling you.
yeah, and you've accomplished so much in such a short time, that you've got so much to contribute. And not only, I mean, I'd say make money, do your thing, your new company VTurb, and you already had a supplement business in the past.
Yeah,
So you've already had all this experience. So you'll keep contributing to your own bank account. That's fine. I don't. I'm not a nonprofit. I don't.
yeah,
I'm not looking to not make money. But you know what? When you can, and it's not. It's This is a great quote. It's not just giving back, because Dan Sullivan, who runs Strategic Coach in the United States and in the UK, he's the top coach for entrepreneurs in the world. Absolutely. Nobody comes close. And he has a phrase that says, entrepreneurs don't need to give back because they never took anything. Entrepreneurs don't
mm,
need to give back because they never took anything.
really
That doesn't mean they
interesting.
don't have to give. That doesn't mean they shouldn't give.
Yeah,
But the idea of giving back, I bristle every time someone says, Brian, you need to give back. I said, no, I don't. I just need to give. I
yeah,
need to give unconditionally. Now, that may be the same thing as giving back, but I'm not doing it as a quid pro quo for my career.
yeah,
I have so much gratitude for my career and all the people that help me and all my mentors. I honor them all the time, whether it's Gene Schwartz or Gary Bencivengo or Marty Edelston or whoever. I mean, but the thing is, it's like, if you just give, and I have this in my book, Over Deliver, if you continually give and contribute, and I always say 100-0, it's not quid pro quo, it's not I'll meet you halfway, it's not 50-50. Just give, give,
yeah.
give. And if you contribute with no expectation of getting any return on it, I got to tell you, I only have 44 years of experience, so it's not a really good sample size. I'm being sarcastic. But I will say that what comes back is it's been, and I have so much gratitude for that. But it's all about contributing, 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 giving, giving, giving,
Yeah,
and then whatever comes back. And sometimes I'll give, like, let's say I'm doing this podcast with you. I'm giving what I can, I'm sharing whatever, and whatever comes back from this particular podcast, if someone signs up for my list, I call my online family because I don't like to, I'm a list guy that doesn't like the word list because lists are people too.
Yeah.
But I think that when people, so I might actually make money from this podcast, but that's not why I'm
Yeah.
doing it. I'm
Yeah.
doing it because I might get something else. It's serendipitous, that
Yeah.
someone else is going to come from a different direction. And look, we just made a connection. You said you're the one that told Icaro
Of
about
course. Yeah.
breakthrough advertising, and now I've
Yeah.
got a lucrative book publishing contract out of that just
Yeah.
by you contributing, connecting the dots and making that connection. And all I'm saying to you is, I'm not giving you advice, but all I'm saying to you is that you've got, you're 30 years old, you got 70 years at least
I
to
hope
keep
so.
contributing. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
you'll contribute because you're already doing it by doing interviews with people
Yeah.
like me and stuff like that.
Yeah, to be honest, I have first-hand experience when it comes to just giving stuff out to people, because Victor was born out of that. Because 3 years ago, I mean, not 3 years ago, I think 5 years ago, I started to doing some lives on my Instagram. So I just take out my phone, just press live, and then start talking about copy, and then people would watch it, and then I had nothing to sell. I had no coaching, no mentorship program, no info product, nothing. I was just straight out talk to the camera and talk about Gene Schwartz, about how to choose your mechanism, headlines, how to create a sales argument, all that kind of stuff. And people really liked it. I started to get lots of followers here in Brazil in my Instagram account. People started to say that I was the best Brazilian copywriter, which is not true. Maybe at that time I was, because nobody knew what copywriting is.
Right.
So yeah, probably, in the land of the blind, the one that has one eye is the king. Yeah, that was me. So yeah, but after I created all these followers, then I just said, hey guys, now I created Victor. Do you want to use it? And then the very first month, we just like became profitable. We like made around 100,000 Brazilian reais, which is $20,000. For the first month of a software, it's pretty cool, because I thought
That's
that I was
pretty cool. Yeah.
Usually they people that create like software products, they don't make a lot of money in the first year or maybe the second year, because they are trying to learn what the market wants. They are trying to create more features. But with Victor, no, the first month we already made money, and then we started growing, and then thankfully we just like grew each month, and we're still growing today. So that's really cool. So
That's
if you're
amazing.
in the audience, you're not giving out stuff to people, content, if you're not helping out people for free, man, just do it. It will come back to you somehow. I don't know how, but as Brian said, like random stuff will start to happen. People will notice that you're helping it. The good karma will give back to you. So that's really
Exactly.
good.
I'll add something else. This was interesting. So in my mastermind, we've had a bunch of speakers over the years of people who help people write books.
Yeah.
And there's this sense out in the world of marketing, especially, but in a lot of areas, that everybody should write a book. Everybody should write a book.
Yeah.
And I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. I don't think there are any shoulds. I really believe that, when it's a should, then it becomes an obligation. It becomes something you have to do. Then it
Yeah.
becomes a burden. However, what I have realized, and you've realized it at an early age, which is incredible, that everybody, maybe not write a book, but everybody has to write. And when I say
Yeah.
write, I'm talking about like, this is writing in a way, what we're doing now.
Of
Because we're
course.
going to create content. It's going to go out into the marketplace. It could get transcribed, and then it's writing.
Yeah.
And so your voice is writing. Your video is writing. You said you're going to do VSLs and things like that. That's writing. Obviously, you got to write a script and just writing. And so Matt Fury, who's an old time, he was a fitness guy going way back, and I just had a dinner in Florida with a bunch of people, like one of the boardroom style dinners, which I can talk about if you want. But it was a special kind of dinner in a private room with some amazing marketers and copywriters. And this guy Matt Fury, and people should look him up, Furey. He was he's an amazing guy. Came out of the Dan Kennedy world, but just an amazing guy. He's written books. He's he bought the company. Psycho Cybernetics, which was a book by Maxwell
Oh.
Maltz, an amazing book. He
Yeah.
owns Cyber Cybernetics. So anyway, but we went around the table, and I said, Matt, what would be advice you would give? Because he's not as old as me, but he's considered kind of, a veteran, we'll say. And I said, what advice do you give? And he says, just, don't stare at a blank piece of paper. Don't just write. Just, and so he reinforced what I was saying. And so even if you don't think you have much to contribute to the world, and a lot of people do, they kind of like they sheepishly, crawl into their cocoon and say, "Oh, I have nothing to share. I don't have any good stuff to do. Everybody else has better content than me." Well, no, they don't, and at these dinners, I always say that, everybody knows everything about this much. And those of you who can't see me, I don't know if this is going to be a video or not, but
It
my
is. It is.
thumb and my thumb and my index finger are 3 inches apart.
Yeah.
So everybody knows everything about this much. So realize what that is, because you know everything about something,
Yeah.
and share it as a starting point. Now, some people know everything about this much. Now I'm expanding my hands to, 12 inches or 15 inches, and sometimes people are just know-it-alls and they don't know anything. And that's a different kind of person. That's not who we're talking about here. But I think when you're sharing, I would say sharing within your genius zone, what you know best, what your unique, and Dan Sullivan calls it your unique ability. And if you're sharing in your unique ability, it's magic. It's
Yeah.
magic, because then everybody else, and imagine being at a dinner with a bunch of rock stars in marketing and copywriting, all sharing, the 3 inches, the everything about something in like 5 minutes and going around the table. How can that not be an amazing dinner? And they're always amazing, because
Yeah.
and so that's about, so when you said that, how you shared your genius with others, the fact that you took it on and you didn't like back off from it is the first step. I mean, you could have said, I'm not Gene Schwartz, I'm not Gary Bencivenga, I don't know if I have anything to share. No, I mean, look, there's a thin line between confidence and arrogance,
Yeah.
right? And having confidence in what you know and what you can share without ego, and just when you were explaining it, you did it with humility. You already did. You said, I didn't know if I was, going to be able to share, but I just shared what I knew, or something like that.
Yeah.
So the confidence is so important. But uh, what happens is if you go into arrogance, and arrogance is when you think you know it all, and when you think that everything that you need to know to be the most successful person in the world has already been taught to you. That's when you lose it. You lose your audiences.
Yeah.
You actually, and then you end up losing your confidence, because people will leave you. And so, look, I don't like to get any unsubscribes from my online family, from my
Of course.
list,
Yeah.
but people want to leave, and that's fine. But I kind of like look at every, and it's crazy because, I don't have a big list. I have, I don't know, 15,000 people in my online family,
Oh.
but I look at every name list of people, and every person is valuable to me.
Yeah.
And plus, when they engage with me, I try to engage back. I try to respond to every single email. I mean, look, your email came out of nowhere, in a way.
Yeah.
It came from this guy in Brazil,
Yeah.
wants to do a podcast. You talked it up a little bit about the podcast and what you're doing, but I'm sure people, I'm not saying people will repel you, but I'm sure you get a lot of non-response to your
Of
emails when
course.
you reach out
Of
to
course.
people.
Yeah. Of course.
And I would never not respond to a legitimate email that's not asking, for money for a Nigerian prince, you know. Um, but if it looks like a legit email that someone wants to engage with me,
Yeah.
how can you not engage? I always say email is a contact sport.
Yeah.
If you're not going to engage, like, then don't do it, because it's, you know.
Brian, now you have no idea how many emails the Brazilians are gonna send you now that they know that you're gonna answer
Oh
all
no, oh no.
of them.
But you know what? There was Jonitas, who is publishing, and Icaro, who are publishing Breakthrough Advertising.
Yeah.
Their email, look, and they could have been like a rinky-dink publishing house, and I would have just said no, you
Yeah.
know? I mean, you can always say no. Now, of
course.
course, but and here's the downside, if there is a downside. It's that, Dan Kennedy is known for creating a moat around himself, meaning that, he's very inaccessible.
Yeah.
I'm probably too accessible. And I, it's, and I'm proud of it, and I'm not proud of it. I'm proud of it because I get to engage with a lot more people. I get to contribute and connect with a lot more people. But the downside is a lot of people want to connect with me.
Yeah.
And I have sort of like I have a reflex reaction to responding to everything, and it can get in the way of productivity. I will
Of course,
say that.
yeah.
But
Sometimes
you know what? I'd rather err on the side of, over engagement than just be in a castle with a moat around it,
Yeah.
not letting anybody in. Now, it also, Dan Kennedy, it's paid off for him because his exclusivity is how he's made a lot of money. Now,
Yeah.
I've made a lot of money in my life, so it's not like it's not exclusive that you have to be that it's not an exclusive thing that you need to be a brand of one that no one can get to make a lot of money.
Yeah, of
Has Dan
course, yeah.
Kennedy made more money than me? I don't know. Who cares? It's
Yeah.
like how much is enough, right?
Of
So
course.
so I have and I've been taken to task on my philosophy because people say you can't be that accessible and be successful.
I mean, if
Well,
it works for
I don't
you,
know.
right? If you're
Exactly.
happy to do it, then why not?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
If it comes up to a point that maybe, I don't know, as you said, your productivity starts to go down, then maybe you can stop talking to that much of a people, to a lot of people.
Yes.
Fala pessoal, antes de vocês seguirem aqui no podcast, eu só queria agradecer vocês aqui, tá? Porque a gente conseguiu fazer um progresso, a gente diminuiu o número de pessoas que não são inscritas aqui no canal do VTurb. Esse número hoje tá em 59,2%, vai aparecer o print aí na tela. E antes, tá? Era 65%. Então, cara, obrigado aí, tá? Isso aqui tá ajudando a gente a crescer mais aqui no nosso canal. A nossa meta aqui é chegar a 50% das pessoas que assistem nossos vídeos sendo inscritas aqui no canal. Então, se tu ainda não se inscreveu, cara, clica aqui embaixo, se inscreve aqui, tu não perde nada com isso, tá? Muito pelo contrário, tu só tem a ganhar com isso daí, porque quanto mais inscritos tem o canal, mais ele cresce, a gente consegue trazer convidados ainda maiores, que vai ter um conteúdo ainda melhor para que tu consiga assistir aí, então tu não perde nada com isso, só tem a ganhar. Então, cara, clica aqui embaixo, tá? Ajuda a gente a bater a meta aí de chegar a 50% das pessoas que assistem o canal como inscritos. Muito obrigado aí e bom podcast.
Yeah.
Right.
But
right.
Brian, in order to be in this position, in order to be able to actually share something, to build an audience, you need to first know something, right? As you said, the 3 inches of something that you really know well. And then you said that I wrote it here that you got like almost 40 years of accumulated wisdom, right? So it's not like someone that was doing one thing over and over and over again. I would like to explore that because I thought that this was really interesting because there's that quote by Bruce Lee, and then he says, "I fear the man who practices like the same kick 1,000 times, and not the man who practices like all the movements like a lot of times." So, how do you see this? Do you think that people in their career they should aim to get really good at something and do the same thing over and over again? Or do you think that they should go to more of your path? I think you answered the second option because you already talked about that, but I don't know. I wanted to explore that, which is to try lots of things, get good at a lot of things, not like really, really good, but have like this general knowledge of everything. How do you think that like these young marketers should prepare to become like really, really good?
Yeah, I mean, I've written blogs about this, and I think the basic premise is that I believe in, if you look at a funnel, upside down funnel.
Yeah.
So the top is the narrow piece, and then it comes out wide.
Yeah.
It's a concept of narrow to wide. So I think that like every great copywriter that I've met. Now, I wrote this blog post. It's like, you may not know it when you see it, was the title. And it was about like the characteristics that were evident in all the top copywriters I've worked with. And I'm not bragging, it's just that I've been in the business for over 40 years and I've been involved in a lot of direct response marketing campaigns,
Yeah.
online and offline, that I've worked with every great copywriter who's alive today, basically. And a lot of them are dead now, but
Yeah.
I've worked with every single one of them. And I looked for the characteristics that were part of all of them. And there were 7 characteristics, but the one that I'll focus on is on passion. And
Mm.
so I think that, you know, if you look at the top copywriters and marketers too, but they usually started in a very tight niche and then just went deep, like not wide, but deep. And they just became a master. Malcolm Gladwell says it takes, 10,000 hours to master anything. I mean, maybe it could be 7,000 hours. It could be
Yeah.
3,000 hours. It's not 15 minutes. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. People say
So
it's
you really
10,000 repetitions, not
repetitions,
hours. So
right?
sometimes,
So I think what you said about Bruce Lee is important because getting the repetitions is how you get to being able to identify where you go next. But I think without that, if you start to go like a copywriter who comes to me over the years and says, what do you have I can write for it? I'm going to be suspicious.
yeah, of course.
Anybody and especially if they're young and I don't think they put in the hours yet. And again, it sounds like I'm discriminating against younger copywriters. I'm not. There are young copywriters who've gone deep in a lot of areas, but to get to a point where you can write about anything, it takes time. It takes
Yeah.
the discipline and all that. So to focus on your question, I think that mastery in an area is the key to getting mastery in multiple areas, basically. So I
Mm.
think that to just go deep on the area that you're most passionate about, the one that really jazzes you the most, and then you say, well, that'll be easy, but then you say, oh, I'll be pigeonholed. Nobody will hire me because all I can write about is, health, or all I can write about is, financial. But you have to understand financial has niches within it. Health has niches within it.
Yeah.
So, if you can become an expert, say, in natural prostate cancer cures, that will serve you well because then you go out and you choose your clients. I know this area better than anybody, and I will be your best copywriter in that area. And then from that, you'll spread out. You'll start doing stuff on natural, skin cancer cures or whatever. So it's just a natural progression, narrow to wide. The other thing is that as it pertains to media choices, we kind of touched on it before, that and I think you kind of like perked up when I said this, when I said that, you can't be, you can't be everywhere, but you can make it seem like you're everywhere.
Yeah,
And
that's interesting.
I subscribe to Perry Marshall's Maze 2.0, which is a great construct. It's basically, I mean, I have my own interpretation of it, but it's basically it's Perry's invention.
Yeah.
So basically you have 2 axes. So you have 2 axes, one horizontal, one vertical.
Yeah.
And on the vertical axes, you have online, offline, and on the horizontal axes, you have um, live and recorded,
Yeah.
live and recorded. And then you have 4 boxes when you have the axes, right? And basically every media choice can go into one of those boxes. So what's a book, a hardcover book? That's recorded
Yeah.
and offline.
Yeah.
What's a Facebook live cast? That's online and live.
Yeah.
What's a recorded webinar? That's recorded and online. So, and you put and then all the media too, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, AdWords, all the media choices. Then you have things like, TV and radio, and so basically what Perry did is he plotted all media choices in those 4 boxes. Now, he said that you don't have to be everywhere, but you can make it seem like you're everywhere if you at least choose a medium in one of each of those 4 boxes. So again, you don't have to be an expert in everything,
Yeah.
but you need to be an expert in at least one in each box. And the reason by that, going back to Dan Kennedy, who says, you need to do offline marketing in an online world. And in my book, Over Deliver, I expanded on that with my concept of O to O to O, online to offline to online to offline, that you want to toggle between online and offline. So even just being all online, that's why offline is one of the points of the axis, because combining, not everybody's going to respond to every online medium you choose and every offline medium you choose, but you want to meet the customer where they want to be met.
Yeah,
And
of
to do
course.
that, you need to explore. So I think I went a step further than Perry and said, I think maybe you could be in 2 if you have enough of a budget. You can test at least 2 in each quadrant.
Yeah.
Um, and but you need to choose wisely. And to choose wisely, that goes back to the original point I made about going deep as opposed to wide. And if you can't go deep in a medium, then you got to find the expert to help you with that. Because to do it on your own when you don't know what you're doing is the curse of the entrepreneur sometimes.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that's why I always say using, and I'm not saying direct response agencies are bad, but to go to one-stop shopping for everything, I never did it in my career and I never would do it. Because, like, for example, in the 1980s, when there were direct response agencies popping up all over the place and they said they can handle everything for you, I knew the best copywriters weren't in direct response agencies. The
Yeah.
best copywriters were getting royalties and getting the big bucks because they were so good. So I was going to buy my copywriting a la carte. I wasn't going to buy it as part of a package. And
Yeah.
today it's even more severe because of the specialization. Advertising opportunities are now infinite. So I want somebody, and this again, narrow to wide. I want to get, if I'm going to do YouTube advertising, I don't want like a digital agency who does Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, AdWords, and they say, I can handle everything for you. That's not my first choice. I want to find, if I think YouTube is one of the ones that I'm going to use, I want to find the YouTube experts
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then hire them. Now, you may not have a budget for that, of course, and money gets in the way, and that's why I think Perry, why he suggests one medium in each quadrant, is that that's a budgetary concern as well. But again, the idea of narrow to wide and niching down. In fact, I'm in Jeff Walker's mastermind, Jeff Walker of PLF. I know that Erico Racha
Yeah.
is a who sells PLF in Brazil, so a lot of your listeners might know about that.
Of course.
And there was this presentation by one of the members about how she was a coach for entrepreneurial women, and she just had her audience all wrong. And what she did was, and she revamped everything by really going deep with the audience. And she actually switched gears. The audience that she was going after was not the best audience. The people that, I don't want to put it just in money, but it's a powerful way to look at it. It's like this, what Dan Sullivan says. He
Yeah.
says, go to the people that pay you the biggest checks. Go to the people that engage with you the most. Go to the people who love you the most, like, respect you the most, and go deep with them. And it was an amazing case history in going deep rather than wide. And what happens is they use the analogy of a boat. And so you're going after the front end of the boat, like all the people that are most likely to be your long-term customers, your long-term members. And what happens is when you go after them exclusively, at least initially, there might be other people that have aspirations to be like that.
Yeah.
And they come in they call the wake. The wake of a boat is like the water on the sides as the boat's moving forward.
Yeah.
They'll come along for the ride. They're not the people that you're even going after, because your messaging needs to be to your core audience. It's the idea of message to list. So, it's a long-winded answer of narrow to wide, but I think every hot seat that I moderate in my mastermind, like someone comes on a hot seat
Yeah.
with a challenge in their business, an opportunity in their business, there's always a discussion about, have you defined your avatar? Have you defined your core audience? Have you gone deep enough with your audience to get the most out of it? It's like Jay Abraham has a book, Getting Everything You Can Out of All You've Got.
It's
You want to
a
go
great book.
deep. Yeah, great book. So, you know, that's my take on. I hope I answered the question
Of
with
course,
all
of
of
course.
that. But and you can follow up with anything you want on that.
One thing that you just said that I think it's really interesting is that you said that today advertising possibilities are infinite. And yeah, I agree with you because today we have so many different channels like YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and we have all of these new ones and also the old ones, like for example, direct mail, which I think is still being used, right? Especially
Very
in the
much.
United States. Here in Brazil, I think people are not doing it, so maybe it's an opportunity. I don't know. But one thing that I would like to ask you is, uh, what do you think that is missing today that direct marketers knew in the past? Because today, for example, one thing that I noticed is that the copy that is being written today is way worse than the copy that was written back in the day. Just because today anyone can write anything, there's no limit of how big your landing page can be. So they can write out these long, shitty sales letters. Back in the day, you had to pay for each new page, right? So the copy needed to be very tight, very well organized, very well written. And you probably are seeing some other stuff that new direct marketers are missing. So I'd like you to ask you that. What do you think there is missing today that people in the past used to do?
Yeah, so I have to be careful here because I don't want to be like, grandpa at the picnic, you
Back in
you,
my
you young
day.
yeah, get off of my lawn. You youngsters don't know anything, right? Because I marvel at the marketers of today. I call them my NGs. They're the new
Mm,
gangsters, right?
yeah,
The old guys are the old OGs, the original gangsters. But there's still a lot to learn from basic direct marketing principles. And so I think when a new marketer, usually an NG is still a gangster, so they
yeah,
get these because they've read the books of the past, they've studied, they've had mentors who lived through, the prehistoric years of marketing. But and as I said, chapter 3 of my book says how paying postage made me a better marketer because it's the discipline, and you already hinted at it. When you're paying postage and printing for every message going out, you're going to be more careful. And you're going to be more precise, and you're going to be more um, uh, uh, uh,
maybe
you know
accountable.
yeah, you're going to be accountable. And when you're doing email or online, if you're paying for the media, I guess then you have to, that's the equivalent of postage. But you don't have to pay for the messaging. So people will
Yeah,
just, as you say, will throw stuff out there and see what works. And there's a negative to all of that. So I think it's not just because, email is cheap doesn't mean you should be sloppy with it. So when
yeah,
you hit send, it's not doing mailing from a mail house paying, $500 per thousand pieces mailed, but you still, when you hit send, make sure the message is still congruent and it's consistent with who you are, what your brand is. When you're doing affiliates, don't take an affiliate that is so alien to what your product is and what you usually sell, because people will leave you. They'll
yeah,
unsubscribe when they see that you're not being congruent. So that's one tip that I always talk about in the online world, that just because it's cheap doesn't mean you should be sloppy, and you need to have that same precision in all of your marketing. I also think that you know I don't think there's enough. Not This is not everybody. Again, I'm not making a blanket statement about all marketers today, but I do see this a lot, that people think that starting with, the killer offer and the best copy and creative, they can send it anywhere and they're going to make money. And the opposite is true. I always, one of my blog posts is that I wrote that I'm really proud of is, the creative and copy is the least important element of your marketing campaign until it's not. And what I mean by that, that's the 41-39-20 rule. So there's a base, and this is, to me, this is like, I mean, I took it a step further, but because I didn't invent anything, as I said before, but I will say that, there was a 40-40-20 rule in direct response marketing. And the 40-40-20 rule said the success of any campaign depends 40% on the list. So the list could be the media, but it's the names you're going out to, your audience.
Yeah.
40% depends on the offer, and 20% depends on the creative and copy. So I made that the 41-39-20 rule because I wanted the list to be a little bit more. And it's actually more than 41 because you need to have your audience dialed in. And again, narrow to wide. If you're in a tight niche, getting that niche, because I'd rather have a big piece of a small pond than a small piece of a big pond that is changing all the time. If you're going deep, it's going to be more, it's not going to be as changeable. It's not
Yeah.
going to be as, and so you can really identify that to a person almost who you're going after, and therefore getting that audience dialed in. So once you get the audience dialed in, then you get a killer offer. Of course, you have to have a good offer with bonuses and, a good price point and all of that. But then, only then do you go out and do the creative. And so, but it's when it's done in the reverse order, if you have the best creative and the best offer and it goes to an audience that's not interested,
Yeah.
you're going to get zero orders. You're going to get nothing. The opposite, if you have the perfect audience for what you're selling with a mediocre offer and mediocre creative, you'll get some orders.
Yeah.
It won't be like awesome off the charts, but you'll get some orders because now you're going to the right audience and you can send out anything and get something. And again, if you're lazy and sloppy, you still can make money.
Yeah.
However, everything is sizzling, it gets really hot when the list is in order and the offer is congruent, and then you go to the best copywriter, or you're the best copywriter for your product, and you write the best copy. Now that's direct response marketing, heaven.
Yeah.
And that's when the creative is the most important. The fact that it's 20% and you say, well, it's half as important as the offer and the list, it's not. It's not. It's actually the most important. And I know that because again, over 40 years of testing proved it, that whenever I got a new I had my list dialed. I was a list guy. So I always had my list dialed in. Offers, we brainstormed the best offers. We always had killer offers. And I knew that if I got the right copywriter to write a package, that's where I always got my biggest lifts in response. You know, yes, you can change the list mix a little bit. You can change the offer a little bit or the price point and get a lift in response, usually, 10 to 30%. But when I got a new creative approach that was just off the charts to that audience, that's when I got 100% lifts in response
Wow.
rates. So I proved it this is all in direct mail too. So it was really, single variable testing, discipline testing. So
Yeah.
I proved it. And so that's a really important aspect that if every marketer online and offline understood that, I think it would up their game a little bit. I'm not saying that people aren't doing it either, but and there are people that start with the creative first, but at least they realize that if they don't have the right audience, all that work is going to be a waste of time.
Yeah.
The other big concept that needs to be addressed all the time in marketing, and it doesn't always get addressed, is the term lifetime value, or
Yeah.
LTV. And lifetime sometimes can be a year, but it's not the first order usually. And so the idea that you need to make, and some people need to because of cash flow, or they're a startup and they need to make money on the first order, it restricts you, right? But if you can extend out and you can predict what the retention rate's going to be, what the renewal rate's going to be, what the continuity, so even for a year, there was a guy in Jeff Walker's mastermind presented on this. His lifetime value, he doesn't do lifetime value. He does
Mm,
1 year value. So he knows that within the first year, he's got to make a certain percentage, and that's his measure. And
yeah,
he's disciplined about that. I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but it's where you can really expand your business big time is when you
yeah,
can extend out. But you have to extend out within believing your numbers, making sure that you have enough cash to support it, and that there aren't any places where you could get screwed, where all of a sudden you're predicting a certain retention rate or a certain renewal rate, and then it goes in the toilet, and then you're screwed because you've invested in those people. So you need some history
of course.
and so you need to keep accurate records. So I think that another tip would be that and again, the best marketers today do it as they did in the past, but in the past you had to do it because the media and the cost of advertising was more expensive. So you needed to have an analytics department that was top notch. You needed to have your numbers dialed in. You need to have a dashboard as the
Yeah,
CEO of everything that's going on so that you can make the call. You're in the cockpit. You have to make the call, whether to elevate more or descend a little more. And so it's the idea of lifetime value, the 41 39 20 rule, as concepts, not necessarily those concepts in it literally, because lifetime value could be a year. The 41 39 20 rule could be, you know, the 60 30 10 rule or whatever.
yeah,
But the concept of a mindset that thinks of audience first, thinks of renewability, continuity, that you don't want to be a one-hit wonder. You don't want to just, sell product until you're out of inventory and then figure out what the next product is. And there are companies that do well that way. The
yeah.
infomercial business was like that. The infomercial business was a lot of one-hit wonders, and the one hit could be amazing,
Of
right?
course, of course.
Um, but I'm into building a business for the long term. So
Yeah, exactly. That's one thing that I noticed. I mean, I don't know if I'm right about this, but in my opinion, I think that the business that we're using direct response, like the old ones, for example, bottom line, all this. Sorry, boardroom, right? The name of your
yeah,
company.
bottom line personal was the
Bottom line
newsletter, right?
personal, yeah. And then uh, it looks like it were more like a more legit business. Let's say it focused more on giving value to people because they could not afford to lose these guys. Once they become a client, you had to make them pay for themselves, right? So today, in my opinion, I think that people are not caring that much about this. They just want to make a sale on the front end, and that's it.
Right.
They usually don't build a brand. Uh, at least here in Brazil, people don't care. In the United States, I mean, you have Craig with Golden Hippo. I think he's doing a very good job. You have the guys from Vishred too, Performance Golf. I think that's the name of it. And you probably know way more brands, but I don't know if that's something that is accurate, that people are not caring a lot about the customer these days because it's just so easy to make advertising, it's just so easy to sell on the front end. And because of that, they are losing a lot of money. That's my
Yeah.
opinion.
You're right, of course, because there are people doing that. I just don't know. If I say it's widespread, then I'll sound like grandpa saying you're all terrible marketers, and I don't want to say that. So there are people that are disciplined and doing this, but the question was, and it was a good question, what what core principles from the past can be taken into the future under today's marketing conditions.
Yeah,
And these are certainly things that if you're not considering, John Carlton great copywriter, used to say, a promotion is not a business.
Yeah.
And the example that he gave, I was at a mastermind with him, and there was someone there who had like the #1 product on ClickBank. And I guess ClickBank is still around, but it's an affiliate network where
Yeah,
people
no,
would
it
just,
is, of course.
okay, so
Yeah.
they had the #1 product on ClickBank, and they were like going nuts about it. It's fantastic. This video sales letter is crushing it. It's fantastic. We're making all this money. And John, looked at him, and John is somebody who's like the wise sage in the room. He'll tell you that, he'll tell you if you're full of shit.
Yeah.
And he basically looked at the guy and he says, you realize a promotion is not a business. And the guy was like taken aback. It's like, well, this promotion is going to basically, he was thinking that this promotion is going to last forever. So then I chimed in and I said, the time to beat your promotion that's crushing it is immediately.
Yeah.
Like Gary Bencivenga, one of the great copywriters of all time, he used to go to me, he'd get a control package, a winner for us at Boardroom. And the day I told him, I said, Gary, you got the control. Your package won by 30%. You're going to start getting royalties. Congratulations. His first question was always the same thing. Okay, so now how can I beat it? Because he didn't want another copywriter beating it.
Yeah.
Because then he's not going to get the royalties. And he had to come up with like the bar was raised. He got the winner. How do I raise it further? And Marty Edelston, my mentor, the guy who founded Boardroom, had this stationery that he had. It was like this fold-out stationery. It folded out to like 11 by 17, a big sheet, but it folded down to like a smaller size. And because he used to write handwritten notes to people all the time, and he'd write them on these big sheets and then mail them in an envelope. And on the bottom, he had a quote that is what this is. The quote was, good, better, best, never let it rest until the good is better and the better best. And it's kind of corny, but that's direct marketing in a nutshell. Like, you have to always be testing. Just like I talked about testing different mediums, not going crazy, not doing 100 different mediums, but or 100 different media choices, picking 4 or 6 or 8, but you need to always be testing. And so in the context of, testing these concepts, you absolutely, you need to just be disciplined in everything that you do so that you don't get away from yourself. You'll start reading your press clippings, basically. You'll say, hey, I got this ad, it's crushing it. I'm done, and
I can retire now.
I can retire now. And it's the opposite. It's like, if you want a business, and the other thing, so a promotion is not a business. I'd say a product is not a business either. Now, there are businesses that have one product, and that's fine. But you're in the supplement business. If you don't have multiple SKUs, multiple product lines, without going crazy, you don't need every product line. You have to, again, going deep, have a hero product, milk it, but know what what's going to be product 2, 3, and 4 when you launch product 1. You don't have to launch 4 products at the same time, but you need to know what's on the horizon a little bit. You don't have to go too far out either. Just go out for the 2nd and 3rd product maybe. But you need to know what you're going to do for what you're going to do for an encore. But that's direct marketing. Direct marketing, in the book, one of the textbooks on direct marketing, which was Successful Direct Marketing Methods by Bob Stone, on like page 6, it says, no direct response market, no direct marketing business. This was mostly direct mail, but it's still true today. Any direct marketing business can't survive without repeat products. So all of us are saying, duh. But it's not a duh, because there are people that have a product and they think they have a business. Now, you see it on Shark Tank. I guess they have Shark Tank in Brazil, right?
Yeah, we have our version of it,
Yeah. So Shark Tank, you have these people that have this miracle product, and Sometimes they get one of the sharks to take them on but usually it's a shark that has a business that they can incorporate that new hot product into that business because they'll have the back end products for that product.
Yeah.
Usually if it's just a freestanding product, I mean, a lot of them get deals, but it's not the same as when someone comes up to the sharks and has a vision for what they want to do in the future, but they're also can't be absent-minded. So some people come in to the sharks. I mean, the Shark Tank is a good microcosm of business and entrepreneurship, obviously. So they come to the Shark Tank with like 18 SKUs for a product that's not proven yet. And usually they don't get a deal usually.
Yeah.
Because they're too frazzled. They haven't gone deep before they went wide.
Yeah.
And so you see that concept show up all the time. I keep on coming back to that because it's a universal. But I do believe that, testing within a niche and then knowing what you need to have a vision. You don't need to have the product set yet. You don't need to have the promotion set yet. And then when you get a winner, and you're gonna now roll it out and milk it for as much money as you can make, that's the time you have to work on the creative to beat it. Beat the control. It's like the king is dead, long live the king, right? So you need to go beat it almost immediately. And that was a Gary Bencivenga thing that, has stayed with me my entire career.
Yeah.
Opa, desculpa interromper aqui o teu podcast, tá? Só queria te dar uma mensagem aqui super rápida. Cara, se tu tem um vídeo de vendas, então tu precisa hospedar esse vídeo aqui no VTurb. O VTurb é não só a melhor hospedagem de vídeo de vendas do Brasil, mas também do mundo inteiro, e ele vai, sem dúvida alguma, aumentar a tua conversão. Então tem um link, tá, aqui embaixo nos comentários aqui, e aí tu pode ir ali, clicar ali e já criar tua conta do VTurb. Tu vai receber daí um treinamento pra tu fazer isso, e tu vai poder aumentar a conversão do teu vídeo de vendas ainda hoje, tá, pessoal? Então, cara, clica aqui embaixo, faça tua conta no VTurb e te espero lá. Valeu e bom podcast.
I think the new direct response marketers, they really need to learn that because, to be honest, I mean, I'm one of them, and I think that we are lazy when it comes to actually building the business. I think that most of us, they just have one promotion and then they call it a business because they don't know all these things. What they do, what they see is someone like on YouTube that's talking about, hey, here's how you can make some money online, and they are doing direct marketing, but they don't even know that they're doing it. They are just like copying some type of framework, and that's it. And then these people start to kind of pollute. That's the word in English, right?
Yeah.
The media. But when the real direct response guys, the ones that really know how to do direct marketing, they come to this media, they end up dominating it. I think that's why Craig is so big, maybe, because he probably understands all of these things.
Oh, he absolutely does.
Yeah.
Absolutely. He was mentored by Eben Pagan, Eben Pagan was mentored by, or at least learned marketing from other people and then took it into a whole different direction. So, having the right mentors is important, which goes back to your original question that I got off on some tangents, which I always do. People say I'm a tangent waiting to happen, but you asked a good question, which is like, what can we learn from the old time marketers?
Yeah.
And it's that listen to them and then adapt. You don't have to do everything they tell you to do. That's not what a mentor does. The mentor is like a guide. Now it's called coaching almost, not even mentoring, but you get a roadmap of what they did, and now you adapt it to today's media. That's what, I'd say if there's one thing where I have somewhat of a unique perspective is that, I've outlived some of the people that I started in direct marketing with. That's an advantage that I'm still above ground,
That's good, yeah.
But it's a good thing. It's a good thing to be above ground.
Yeah.
But it's that, I can continue to be a bridge that connects the fundamentals and eternal truths to everything that's state of the art today, which I don't even know. I don't know that's everything well. Again, advertising opportunities are infinite. All the things that are going on, and now with AI and ChatGPT, et cetera, there's so much to learn that that's why I say teach. You're learning when you're teaching. So I'm being the bridge. I'm sort of teaching on this podcast today.
Of course.
But I'm learning from you when you interject and you talk about what's really going on, because you're on the ground. I only have my mastermind members to tell me, because I'm not actually a practitioner in the marketing landscape right now. But I know, I've got 250 people who are in my intimate mastermind, plus 15,000 people in my online family giving me feedback all the time. So, but I'm not doing it. I'm not actually doing it. So all I can do is be the bridge of the fundamental truths, bring them forward, and then let the new guys and the new gals, use it for adaptation and innovation. I'm not saying do it like we did. As I said, I started this off saying, I'm not going to be grandpa at the picnic. So I'm not going to be constantly saying, oh, marketing today sucks. You got to do it like we did it. No way. It's never going to be my game, because there's too much good stuff going on today. But, we're identifying through your question of what can marketers today learn. There are people that are, that are sloppy.
Of course.
They don't know these things.
Of course.
Now, some people are instinctive about it, though. Like there was a guy in one of the masterminds I was in that just, he knew lifetime value, but he didn't call it lifetime value. But he knew that, advertising a $10 special report on Facebook, that he didn't have to even get the $10 back off the advertising spend. He knew, because he had a funnel set up, and funnels have been around a long time. They just didn't call them funnels back then. They were upsells and cross sells and strategic byproducts. But funnel, you come in with a $10 book. What's next? What's next? What's next? And he showed us, this had to be like 8 years ago. And Facebook was not what it is today even. And he was talking about how the average sale, not every sale, but the average sale on the $10 initial product was something like $79.
Whoa.
And then he knew that at $79, he could get back his ad costs plus some, and he knew he could accumulate cash that way and then invest more.
Yeah.
That's direct response marketing to a T. That's lifetime value to a T. That's everything we're talking about. He didn't call it that. He just figured it out because he's just a really smart guy.
Yeah.
He probably had some training in direct marketing, but he never did direct mail. He never knew it from direct mail. And in my book, I talk about it from a direct mail perspective. We call it the bogey, how much you can afford to lose on your first order to make it back in some reasonable amount of time in the future.
I remember
this guy figured it out. He figured it out on his own. So, there are just really smart people doing marketing today. So we don't want to we're not throwing everybody under the bus here.
Yeah, no, of course. There are some good people.
I think what you've shared and what I've shared at least gives an indication that anybody who's not doing it this way might want to read some books, might want to, listen to, webinars with the greats of direct marketing.
Of course,
There's a lot of stuff that's available to them, and then they can adapt.
Yeah, and for these people, Brian, that they want to become better marketers, to learn the fundamentals of direct response so they can improve their business, make more money, have a better life, and especially if they want to learn from you. Where do you think that people should go? You say that you have a mastermind. You say that you have a big online family, which is your list, right? That you call an online family.
Right.
And because we are reaching the end of the podcast, so I'd like to send people your way so they can learn from you. This is better for me too, because the more money they make, the more they will use Viterb, which is great. So I make money too. Yeah. So you'll be kind of working for me a little bit, like teaching these people. So thank you.
You're not a nonprofit. I know.
Yeah. But how can people get to know you?
Yeah. So, and again, I'm not the be all end all. So you said, how can people learn about direct marketing? But I have so many resources in my world, and I share a lot of them for free. So I encourage people to become a member of my online family, and they can do it in one of two ways. They can go to briankurtz.net, BrianKurtz.net. There's an opt-in to my list, which is my online family. They get actually the welcome mat to that is an interview I did with Perry Marshall, which talks about 3 case histories from Boardroom that are like some of those eternal truths of that we've talked about today. So it's a powerful interview, and that's what they get for free when they sign up. And signing up for my online family, I don't sell a lot. In fact, I've been called the director of sales prevention sometimes because I'm basically I'm educating.
Yeah.
So it's an educational blog that I send out every Sunday morning. Um, in fact, that's what created the book Over Deliver, because I had 8 years of blogs, and I kind of not just assembled them, but I put them into a book by chapter.
Yeah.
But so so in the PS, sometimes I'll sell, an educational thing, either breakthrough advertising or my mastermind, but it's more of the same. They don't have to buy anything ever. They can access a lot of free content that's on the site. The archive of my blog going back to 2014, they're all on there. You can do a search on anything, copywriting, lists, offers, anything that I've talked about
Awesome.
in the last 11 years in my blog. So that's briankurtz.net.
Yeah.
If another way to get into my online family and get some amazing resources and my book, if you want to spend $20 to do it, is you go to overdeliverbook.com,
Yeah.
OVERDELIVER book.com. And that site is basically to buy my book, but there are 11 huge bonuses on that site. Like there's a course that Jay Abraham did that he spent $200,000 to develop,
Oh,
and it's all there for people to have for free. Um,
that's
there's a
amazing.
swipe file from Dan Kennedy. There's a swipe file that I put together with an archivist named Jason Hart. There are 2 PDFs of the 2 best books about direct mail ever written that are not in print. One by Dick Benson, one by Gordon Grossman. I'm sure your audience has never heard of either of them. They
Yeah, me
should,
neither. Have no idea.
but there's 2 PDFs of their full books on the site just for buying overdeliverbook.com. So you go to overdeliverbook.com, there's a button there to go buy the book. So you go into an open window on Amazon or Barnes & Noble, you come back to the site, you put in your order number, you get the book, and then whether it's Kindle or hardcover, it doesn't, or audio, it doesn't matter. And
Got
then you
it.
get access to all of these amazing bonuses. And that's sort of like a cheat sheet into not just my world, but the world of direct response marketing over time. Because I have something from Perry Marshall in there. I mean, he's not from yesteryear. He's an OG, but he's not an OOG, like really old. Um, so, but it's Jay Abraham, Dan Kennedy, all of that stuff, and so those are the 2 best ways. My mastermind is Titan's Accelerator on at briankurtz.net. Or you go to the tab, it says work with me. And you can go see the details on
Yeah.
Titan's Accelerator. It's $2,000 a year. It's the best value in masterminds in the world, in my opinion. Because
Yeah, I agree.
I'm not I'm not a nonprofit, but I'm not all about the money. So it's, I over deliver, I over deliver on everything I do. So I over deliver in the mastermind, but also if you notice the overdeliverbook.com site, when you title a book over deliver, you better over deliver on your
Yeah, of
bonuses,
course. Yeah.
which I did.
Yeah.
So those are the best ways to get into my world. If people want to get into my world, I'm anticipating getting more involved in Brazil because,
Please do.
I know Victor Damasio. We've talked about me being, a guest at his mastermind at some point, possibly. Talk to the guys who are publishing breakthrough advertising. Oh, that's another thing that's on my site, briankurtz.net. There's a products tab at the top, and you can get to everything that I sell. I sell some great educational products.
Great.
But the guys who are publishing Over Deliver in Portuguese in Brazil, they've talked about, me doing interviews and webinars with them. So I'm looking forward to that. So I hope to get more involved in the Brazilian market at some point as well, because it's a growing market. It's got a lot of great young entrepreneurs, you being one of them. So
Thank you.
it's like, it's such fertile ground for me and everybody else. So I'm excited. I'm excited about that.
I think you really like it. Just so you know, this right here is the biggest direct response podcast in Brazil. So you probably like get some around 10,000, 15,000 views on your podcast. That's like the
Nice.
average that we get. And I know that's not a lot, but I mean, it's a very qualified audience because not most people, all the guys that are going to hear this, they are doing some sort of direct response marketing. Either they know it or not.
Right.
Yeah.
I hope that I didn't go off on too many tangents to not keep them interested during this interview, because I mean, if I get 6 people to opt in to my online family from this podcast, that's a big win for me.
Yeah,
Like 6 Brazilian entrepreneurs who want to learn from me and they don't have to pay me any money to do it. I'm cool with that,
that's
because
amazing.
then I get to, again, going back to, contributing, right? As you do, I hate the word networking. I hate the word networking because networking implies that, the one who has the most Facebook friends wins, right? But
Yeah,
that's not me. I want to contribute to connect because I go deep with people. I go deep and then wide. So I think contributing to connect is a much better way to look at networking, because networking is like, I just want to accumulate people, and that's not who I am anymore. I
yeah,
never was that. People misconstrued my skills in connecting people as networking and collecting people, but I'm not that, and I don't want to be that, and I never want to be that. So
yeah,
um, I just want to contribute.
yeah. I'm the same way. The same
I
way. I
know you
think.
are. I know
Yeah,
you.
I
That's why
think
I
that's
wanted to
a.
be on your podcast.
Thank you, thank you. So, guys, all the links that Brian mentioned, briankurtz.net, it will be here in the description. Over deliver book. .com. It will be here in the description too, so you can click there. You can explore if you want. At least the what you can do is just join Brian's online family, which is his list, because then you can learn for free. And I mean, if you've been following here the Victor podcast, or if you've been following me, these are the guys that I learned from. That's why I'm bringing them here to Brazil, because you don't have to learn from me. You can learn directly from them, which is better. I think you can get it from the source. So
But don't underestimate what they're learning from you.
I mean, thank you, but I'm just like teaching a little bit of what I learned from you. So I think it's way better if they go directly to you.
Yeah, but you're learning by teaching and teaching by learning, and that's the best
Yeah,
way.
exactly. People say that the best way to learn is actually teach someone. That's true.
Yes,
But
absolutely.
Brian, thank you so much for being here, and I would like to ask you to just send a message to the Victor audience. You can say whatever you want. Uh, yeah, just wanted to give you the word so you can say something. So go
Yeah,
for it.
I sometimes when I my first book, The Advertising Solution, which I wrote with Craig Simpson, which profiles 6 legends of advertising guys like David Ogilvy, Claude Hopkins, Gene Schwartz, Gary Halbert, Robert Collier, and John Caples. Whether you've heard of them or not, these were 6 guys who were they were um, they were general advertising guys, because there wasn't really direct marketing with Gene and Gary Halbert there was, but Claude Hopkins, wrote scientific advertising in 1923 or
24, I think.
32. Yeah. And so he knew about direct marketing even before direct marketing was invented, if it ever was invented.
Yeah.
So I always sign, whenever I sign that book for somebody, I always have the words, and it's from this guy I met a long time ago, Don Leiby, but it's go forth and multiply. Go
Mm.
forth and multiply. And I'm not saying like multiply for multiplying sake either, because all the things we talked about in this podcast about going deep before you go wide, it's not just, multiplying to get a big number, but when I say go forth and multiply, multiply your influence, multiply your impact, multiply your audience, but do it intelligently. Do it in a way that suits you. And I'm talking to everybody who's listening now, that suits you and your comfort zone. You dial it up aggressively or less aggressively as you might feel like. And there's nothing better in the world than seeing other people multiplying based on what you've shared.
Yeah.
And so that's why I say go forth and multiply. And that's what I'll tell your audience now. It's like,
Awesome.
it's a good way to end the interview because again, I don't want them to misinterpret that. It's not just, yes, you want to multiply your income, you want to multiply your list, you want to multiply all of those typical metrics, but there's a whole bunch of stuff that you can multiply. You can multiply your influence. You can multiply your connections. You can multiply your relationship capital.
Yeah.
So go forth and multiply is my message to your audience. And I know they will, because we've seen it in Brazil already. And I'm sure people listen to this podcast in other places because I'm talking in English. I guess you subtitle it in
I will,
Portuguese.
Yeah.
But, it's for everybody, not just the Brazilians, but the Brazilians in particular, because you're on such an incredible growth path, that all of the things we talked about in this interview are applicable as you're growing. They're not like things you have to do or should do. I don't believe in shoulds, but incorporate a lot of these things into your thinking about your business, your marketing, your copywriting, whatever you do. So yeah, go forth and multiply.
Okay, thank you so much for the message, Brian. So now, guys, go forth and multiply. This was another Vitor podcast, and I see you on the next one.
Cara, muito obrigado aí por ter assistido aqui mais um episódio do Segredos da Escala. Se tu gostou do episódio, não se esquece, tá, de curtir aqui esse episódio, de se inscrever no canal do VTurb pra tu receber aí mais episódios aí na tua caixa de entrada. Isso é muito importante pra gente, e se tu fizer isso, eu te garanto, tá, que eu vou trazer os melhores convidados aqui pra passar conteúdo pra ti, beleza? E se tu tá procurando aí mais episódios aí pra assistir, cara, eu vou deixar 2 episódios aqui, tá, em algum lugar aqui da tela aqui, dos Segredos da Escala pra tu ver. Então clica ali, vê eles, tá, assiste também, vale a pena. Grande abraço e até mais.